I think they would have done the same. I think Dick and ABC would have done the same with Sonic with Blast to the Past. That's what I think they would have done, in my honest opinion. I mean, I'm not saying that if they wanted to put Fed Up with Antoine and Ghostbusted and, you know, an Odd Couple and Rebecca as, you know, an hour-long or 45-minute primetime presentation for Sonic that SatAM, that it would have been bad. Nor am I saying that if they would have done, they took in Ghostbusted and Rebecca and paired them together as a Halloween presentation, it would have been bad. No, but knowing how networks work, in my opinion, I think they would have had ABC would have taken a page out of CBS's playbook, and like I said, what CBS did with the Ninja Turtles by putting on that Planet of the Turtleroids 1 hour special, ABC, I should say, ABC would have done the same with Sonic SatAM and Blast to the Past, as well as if they were going to do any kind of holiday special, it would have been a Christmas special. So that's my answer to that question, to both questions right there. Okay, the fifth question he asked is, in the episode Blast to the Past Part 2, at the end we find out that Rosie is unroboticized because Sally told Rosie not to leave the forest, or don't leave the forest. After that episode we never saw Rosie again. How did you feel about that? Well, I will say this. You know, as much as it would have been nice to see her at least in a crowd sequence at the end of Doomsday, or even during the planning sessions of Doomsday or something like that, or even at the end of Cry of the Wolf when you had all the freedom fighter groups come together, I think the reason we never saw her again was to leave the door open. Was to leave the door open for potentially season 3. That's what I think happened. I think the reason we didn't see her after Blast to the Past Part 2 was it was leaving the door for her to return. It was leaving the door open for her to return in season 3. I think if season 3 would have happened like Ben Hurst wanted it to, she would have had a bigger role, or at least not a bigger role, but not as big as a role like, say, a major character or anything like that, like someone of an advisor or a counselor to Sally or something like that. So, how did I feel about it? Well, you know, they could, like I said, they could have brought it back for a crowd scene, or, you know, the scenes that I mentioned at the end of Cry of the Wolf. But they didn't do that, and like I said, I think the reason we didn't see her after that was they were leaving the door open for her return in season 3. Because one thing you got to remember is when Sally had Rosie promise her that she was not going to leave Knothole, she was not going to leave the Great Forest. You got to remember that the reason for this was because originally, when Rosie had left Knothole and the Great Forest, I guess to go pick flowers or pick some berries or whatever for, you know, to do whatever, I think probably to pick some food, she got captured and roboticized. And Sally, basically, by doing what she did, yes, she messed with the space-time continuum, or not space-time continuum, but she also kind of changed history, rewrote history a bit. The reason Sally did that, in my opinion, and I think anybody watching this would agree, is because Rosie is basically like the closest thing she has to family. That's right. She's the closest thing she has to family. She's basically like a mother. She was basically was and is like a mother to Sally, Sonic, and all the other Knothole freedom fighters. So I think that's why she kind of messed with the time stream a little bit and kind of changed history by having Rosie stay behind and make the promise that she did. So again, though, as far as I'm concerned, yeah, it would have been nice to see a cameo here and there, but I think, like I said, they were leaving the door open for her return in season 3. So hopefully that answers that question. Alright, the next question he asked is, in the episode called Doomsday Project, there's a part that Sonic and Sally will go... There's a part that has Sonic and Sally going real fast. When they were going real fast, it was a little bit hard to see. It was a little bit hard to see what's going on. How do you feel about that? Well, to answer that question, it's mainly the fact that the reason we didn't really see them going as fast as we would like to see them go is mainly due to the fact that that's how the climax was done. I mean, you take a look at a lot of finales of story arcs, either the season-long story arcs or the story arcs that, you know, really start building and, you know, really start building up and paying, giving the big payoff, if you will, in the final few episodes, like the Doomsday Saga did. To me, the ending was basically designed to be that way. We saw them going through all sorts of areas, and we saw them on the outskirts. From an outside point of view, we saw them going all the way around the machine. Basically, like I said, that's how it was designed. Because when you think about it, when they used the Power Stones, Sonic's speed, his power of speed, was transferred over to Sally, as well as a bit of his personality. When you take a look at her going for a kiss, after looking at her, especially when you look at her trying to go for a kiss after they destroy the Doomsday Machine, and Sonic's like, whoa, 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 I don't want to find out of here, kind of deal. But to me, the ending was designed to be just like that. I mean, if you've watched Dragon Ball Z, which ironically I was just watching Angry Joe's Dragon Ball Z Resurrection F review, and if you take a look at some of their endings at times, depending on how long their story arcs were, they always had sometimes flashy, kind of endings, big climactic flashy endings, to where it'd almost be like things went to the point that things would go a little too quick, and it's like you can't really tell what's going on. So to me, that's how the ending was designed, in my opinion. Was they wanted it to be that way, so that you could see them just running through certain places of the machine, of the Doomsday Machine, and destroying it. But it was designed that way. But the way it was designed was basically to really give you that huge, massive, climactic feel. So hopefully that answered that question as to why it was done the way it was. Okay, the seventh question he asked is, I felt like the episodes called Blast of the Past Part 1 and 2 and the episode called Dulce were kind of sad because of what happened of the family members like Uncle Chuck, King Acorn, and Sabrina. What do you think? Well, yeah, they are kind of sad a little bit because Sally finally does get reunited with her father, even though it's in the past. And it is kind of sad because you had Sonic and Sally, because now it's kind of etched into the memories, seeing firsthand Uncle Chuck being roboticized. And as far as Sabrina goes, Dulce's mom, we don't really know how she gets captured in the end. So all we know is she and Dulce are safe, and she comes back and saves them. She comes back and repays that rescue to Sonic and Sally. So I wouldn't really say it's sad or anything. I would say it's more of bitter. It's more of a. It's bittersweet in a sense because, like I mentioned, because when I answered the question about Rosie, it was kind of a bittersweet victory because yes, it was sad that was the only time Sally saw her father till the Void episode when she finally found out what happened to him. But like I said, it was kind of a bittersweet deal for them, bittersweet victory, because at least, in a sense, Sally had a family member, if you will, in Rosie, still around and unroboticized. So, to me, it was kind of bittersweet. Yes, it was sad and everything for Sonic and Sally as kids to see what was happening to Uncle Chuck, because even though their adult forms, their teenage forms, were there, that gets etched into their minds now, so that even when they go back to the future, back to the present time, you know, it's going to get etched, it'll be etched into their minds. It's going to make everything more personal for them. And, you know, again, I think it was, yeah, it is sad and everything, but I think it was kind of bittersweet. It was kind of bittersweet. Now, yes, it did open the door for a little bit of mystery, because we never really knew how Dulce's mom got captured. Now, true, the roboticized dragon in the Dulce episode might have been Sabrina, but we can't really say. But obviously finding out exactly where Dulce was heading kind of gives you that indication that it is. Yeah, it is a bit kind of sad that, you know, you see her roboticized, but still, it's, like I said, we don't really know exactly what happened between then and, you know, between then and the, you know, 15, you know, 10 years, 10 years prior to that. So, overall, yeah, it is sad, you know, that as kids they saw what happened to Uncle Chuck, and it is sad that potentially we did see Sabrina roboticized, but in a sense it's kind of bittersweet, because like I said, when you take a look at Blast of the Past, you know, they do get Rosie back, and in Dulce, you know, she's basically knows that for Dulce it's a bit of a bittersweet victory, because not only does she learn how to care for an egg in case she has one herself, if you know what I mean, but she sort of matures in that episode, because she realizes her importance not only to the freedom fighters but to her own kind and everything. So hopefully that answers that question. Alright, the 8th question. He says, in 2007, he emailed Ben Hurst and asked him how come Knuckles wasn't in Sonic SatAM and only had him in Sonic Underground. He said that he wanted to have Knuckles in Sonic SatAM Season 2, but there was no room for him. But there's a good chance that Knuckles would be in Season 3. Do you agree with Ben Hurst about Knuckles not being in Season 2? Well, I kind of look at it this way. We kind of got an indication that Knuckles might be in Season 2, if that was going to happen, because they were on a floating island. And we can't say whether or not that was the floating island, but we could also indicate, in a sense, that might have, like I said with the situation with Rosie, it opened the door for the potential of finding more floating islands in Season 3. Do I agree with Ben Hurst that there was no room for him? I'd have to say that with the story he had, with the story arc that Ben Hurst and the other writers had planned for that season, I would have to agree, because that season, the second season, was primarily focused on the freedom fighters finally winning the war against Robotnik and taking back their city. So, or taking back their freedom, if you will. So, to me, from a story perspective, and you had to introduce of characters like Ari, you had Loop in the Wolf Pack, you had Dulce in there as a new character, and all that, I think, honestly, yeah, there probably was no room, because like I said, the main focus at the time was on the freedom fighters finding a way to finally get rid of Robotnik. And the story itself was big enough as it is, because right off the bat in Game Guy you find out that there are other freedom fighter groups out there, and they're all contained in this list that Sally's father has that he gives to her in the Void episode. So honestly, I would have to agree with Ben Hurst on that. Do I think there would have been room for him in season 3? Oh yeah, most definitely. I mean, if things would have worked out the way they were planned, according to some notes and sources that spoke with Ben Hurst before he passed, apparently the plan for season 3 was for Knuckles to show up, I think, midway through the season, midway through the season, almost to the end. And then had things worked out, and let's say another season would have followed, he would have been more of a major player then. So I would have to agree with Ben Hurst on that, because I think season 2 was primarily focused on the freedom fighters finally getting rid of Robotnik and trying to get their freedom back and trying to get their planet back, away from him. So I would have to agree with Ben on that one. Okay, number 9. He says, in the 1990s, there were only 3 different Sonic cartoons. A lot of people like Sonic SatAM the best. Some people like Sonic Underground, but not as much as Sonic SatAM. Either a lot of people or most people don't like the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon series. They like Sonic SatAM or Sonic Underground a lot more than Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. But it turns out that Sonic SatAM had 26 episodes, Sonic Underground had 40 episodes, and Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog had 65 episodes. How do you feel about that? Okay, well, first of all, to answer that question, Adventures was originally proposed as being the ABC series, from what I understand. But because I think of the description of how the series was going to be, ABC didn't go for it. But ABC, they didn't go for the concept, from what I understand, of what Adventures was presenting. But when they saw, I think, this backup idea of doing the Sonic SatAM cartoon, they went with it because, one, both shows, of course, both shows were, of course, going to have Jaleel White as the voice of Sonic, and they were good with that. But like I said, I think it was the concept of what Adventures was going to be that kind of turned them off. But when this other concept was presented, I think that's when they're like, yeah, we'll go with that. So, as far as Adventures having 65 episodes, basically 40 episodes more, and 25 episodes, 40 episodes more than SatAM and 25 more than Underground. For syndication, 65 episodes is the norm, or was the norm. 65 episodes was the norm for syndication. That was basically one season. One season. Yeah, one season. That's all it was. Sonic Underground potentially was supposed to follow the same perspective, but I think maybe financially they couldn't get it done. I don't really know what happened there. I'm thinking it has to do with something financially, animation-wise, because you got to look at it this way. The animation was very similar to what SatAM was, and in a sense, it kind of had a very similar story element, and it kind of had. Well, I will say this about Underground. It was more balanced in the humor and drama kind of department. It was 50-50 when it came to humor and drama. But to me, Underground was supposed to have 65, despite what people say. They could say, oh, it was only planned for 40 and all that. BS. It was going to have 65, and everybody knows that. But I think due to something behind the scenes, or either it was the animation was costing too much, or whatever it was. I don't know what it was, honestly, but obviously to me it had to be something behind the scenes. To me, that's the reason we only got 40 episodes.